It's Monday night and you are watching the SFBN, and that can only mean that you're watching In the Trenches. Stay tuned as we'll cover all the great high school football action and stats and analysis from around the entire state of Pennsylvania. So make sure to stay tuned to In the Trenches. Good evening, SFBN Nation. I am Richie Blyways, and I'm welcoming you to another great episode of In the Trenches. Thank you so much for joining us as we're going to recap high school football action throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania tonight. We've got some great games to cover and some great upcoming matches to look at as we go through all of the districts encompassing Pennsylvania. As always, I am joined by my wonderful analysts and co-hosts here. I have Corey Sharp. I have Mike Palmer. Thank you guys so much for being here again.
Thanks for having us, Richie.
It has been such a great response that we've received. We want to thank all of our viewers out there. Last week we started something in honor of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Last week we started spotlighting a different charity, a different great organization that helps to fight breast cancer and helps those families that really are in need when they are battling that horrible, horrible disease. So this week, because all of us on this panel, on this crew at SFBN, we've all lost somebody that we love thanks to breast cancer. We would like to do something in their memory and in their honor. So each week we will spotlight a different charity, a different great organization. And this week we have another one, and it's called simply PINK, P-I-N-K. According to their mission statement, PINK seeks to create an environment in which each individual can find avenues for facing the extreme lifelong challenges with which they have been presented. Our mission at PINK is to provide, and here's where P-I-N-K comes in, power, information, networking, and knowledge. P-I-N-K was started in 2005 by 4 women, all breast cancer survivors, looking to provide a network for other survivors. The vision was for a network of information and support for those facing the diagnosis of breast cancer. PINK has grown over since then and has now become a nonprofit organization. Please check out their website, www.pinkpartnersyork.org. You can find out how to donate and how to get involved today. And guys, this was something I actually found out about PINK that is really great. You know, we talk high school football, we talk high school action. We can't forget about the amazing students. PINK will be offering 3 $1,000 scholarships to high school seniors from York County each year. PINK simply asks that the seniors submit their personal relationship with a family member that has faced the diagnosis of breast cancer. Contact your guidance counselor to apply for this scholarship or visit the website, again, www.pinkpartnersyork.org. Thank you so much to all those out there at the SFBN Nation checking out their website and donating, doing whatever you can. But guys, we are here to talk about sports. It is the greatness that we are here to enjoy and to love.
It's October.
So, it's October. We gotta love it. We gotta do our support for breast cancer, but we've also got to entertain. We've got to talk about this wonderful sport of football, and high school is a great place for it. So let's start District 1. Corey, I'm going to go to you on this one. I want to talk Pottsgrove Falcons beating Upper Perkiomen Indians. 54-24, not exactly what we could call a close game, really.
No, it was 35-10 at halftime, Pottsgrove. So Upper Perk kind of put together some garbage points there in the second half. I think we saw a little bit of a prevent defense out of Pottsgrove to make the score somewhat respectable. But Pottsgrove put 427 yards on the ground. Rasul Faison, 23 carries, 360 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He ran for touchdowns of 68, 55, 50, 35, 34, and 10 yards. A measly 10 yards. What's wrong with the kid? Anyway, the team only threw 9 passes. Not Garnet Valley level. We talked about them last week. I think they ran, 71 run plays. But nonetheless, I mean, they got it done on the ground. And their defense, they forced 4 turnovers. So they're pretty suffocating on the defensive end. So in 4A, in District 1, Pottsgrove moves to 7-0. They're playing Phoenixville next week, and Phoenixville, I believe, is 1-6. So they should they should get over that hump there. And then they play Pope John Paul II, who is also undefeated in District 1 4A. So that's going to be the matchup to watch in 2 weeks. But you can't. That's a trap game next week. They can't slip up.
I think really this one, you look at Pottsgrove. Pottsgrove really just scores all night. They score throughout the entire game, ultimately getting to 55 points, but 21 in the first quarter. I don't know that there are many teams that can really come back strong when you give up 21 in the first.
No, I mean, that's just, it takes the wind out of your sails, basically. That's very difficult to come back from. The momentum, is not on the team that's losing side,
And when you look at Upper Perk, they don't score in the first, they don't score in the fourth. If your team isn't scoring in the fourth quarter, you might as well just say that we've given up, we're conceding this game, and we're just going to take our lumps with this one.
Yeah, and they couldn't stop the kid Rasul Faison. I mean, you saw the runs. Like I said, his shortest run was a 10-yard run. He had 5 other touchdowns that were 34 yards or more. I mean, that's pretty sick.
Yeah. Early touchdowns in any type of football, we've seen it Sunday for the Philadelphia Eagles. You can't really control the game and utilize what you wanted to do in your game plan. You have to, if you don't have a stellar passing attack, going down 21-0 in the first quarter, then it's really tough to come back.
Right, you become one-dimensional.
Exactly, and especially if you don't have a passing offense that can really produce the numbers in order to come back, because running the ball is only going to lose time in the clock. So.
Well, agreed. Again, Corey, you mentioned it, upcoming for these two teams. Pottsgrove Falcons have an away conference game at Phoenixville on Friday at 7. And then Upper Perkiomen Valley, the Indians go on the road. They're going to go to Royersford, PA. They're going to face Pope John Paul II on Saturday the 14th. That game's at 1 p.m. I'm going to stay with District 1 with you guys here. We're going to stay District 1. I'm going to talk about a game that was just a blowout in the true sense of the word here. 35-0, Norristown Eagles over Methacton Warriors. Mike, I'll come to you for this one.
Yeah, Richie, I mean, Methacton couldn't really get a win in the column this week. They still have no wins here at 0-7 and 0-3 in the Liberty Conference, but Norristown once again controls it, 35-0. But Norristown is not an impressive team in themselves. They are 2-5 this year, and you just see the balance of what that district proves. And I mean, Norristown went 11 for 12 in passing and 305 total yards. That's impressive. But I want to see who else is in this district here, because we talked about it since the beginning of the year. District 1 has multiple teams, one of the biggest districts we cover, and all the counties that covers. But yeah, I mean, Norristown 2-5, but they look impressive here tonight. They're on 3 touchdown passes and getting 2 interceptions on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, and as we look at some great stats here and some great highlights from the game, you can see, I mean, just some great juke moves, great scoring. But my question to you, you mentioned the previous weeks for Norristown, and again, they win 35-0, but they have difficulty scoring in the previous game. Here they put out they put up a shutout. Is that really speaking to Norristown's ability or Methacton's lack thereof?
Well, you see with the offense they're running here, it's all quick passing, RPO-based run-pass options. We've seen that a lot now in college football, but the high school programs have really been picking it up, trying to see if they can work their own way with it. And that's what we see here in Norristown. They would go 11 for 12 in passing. I mean, that's just great systematic work by Norristown Eagles, and they get a big win, and maybe they can turn around with that huge offense that they're running. I mean, it's hard for the high school kids to learn that, but if you bring that in now and start recruiting a little bit better and bring kids through that offense and through your system that they believe in, and maybe Norristown can maybe set that up for a next year turnaround.
And sometimes that's all it takes, if you're playing a team that's maybe not up to par, I mean, Norristown is 2-5 too. I don't think they're great, but I can get your confidence going for the rest of the year, or even playing a team that's kind of subpar to you. So look out for Norristown.
Right. Sometimes in those type of systematic schemes with that offense, it's just a few mistakes that really change the ball games. I mean, Norristown looked impressive tonight when they played, but once again, 2-5, and District 1 is really competitive, and you got to find the right momentum in that district to either succeed in.
I feel like when you're a team in this position, I feel like you just, like Norristown is, I feel like you really have to look to your juniors, not your seniors at this point, because your seniors are already looking to what the next step is. Your juniors, when you're 2-5, they're the ones that are really going to show if they have the leadership skills. Do they have what it takes to be able to really say, I know this was a down season, but here are the things we need to do in the offseason to get better. Here are the things that we can look at next year as the positives. And high school football and college football really are different in that way, that you're able to say, well, there's next season, and I know I'm not a leader right this second, but I know that come next season, I will have to be that leader. As the senior, I'm going to have to step up.
Well, in this point of the season, that's all you really think about, the next year, and see what we can have next year, because at this point, there's only 2 to 3 games left for every team that we are highlighting, and at this point in time, you really have to worry about next year, especially these records that we just seen here from Norristown and Middletown. I mean, 0-7, the 2-5 at Norristown. At this point in the season, you're right, Rich, you need to worry about next year, but moreover for the coaches to get their understanding of what they can have, not only the players and the outside voices, it's really the coaches, and they need to set up a systematic scheme to flip their seasons around and see what they can do next year.
And you can tell a lot about a player and a kid, going through a down season, how they respond to that. Is their head going to be down? So that's something that I think the coaches look for, and that's kind of what you look for in a captain. It's pretty easy to lead when everything's going great, but when it's not is when you see, it's when your character truly shows.
Well, and in a moment, we're going to look at 2 schools who things really are actually going very great for them. But before that, let's talk Norristown. They stay home next week. They go against Perkiomen Valley on Saturday at 1. Methacton has a home conference game against Owen J. Roberts. That's Friday at 7. I mentioned it. We're going to talk about 2 really great schools here. They go on at Veterans Memorial Stadium, District 2 Division 3 showdown. The Old Forge Blue Devils, number 7, beating Lackawanna Trail Lions for number 9 in, I think, a closer game than anyone really expected this to be, or is that maybe not?
I mean, in those District 2 games, anything could happen, Richie.
Two tough teams that can both play very well, and I'm not surprised by a shootout.
Once again, District 2, they've really a small district up there in northeastern Pennsylvania, but Class 1A battle here, Old Forge Devils versus the Lackawanna Trail Lions, and I mean, this matchup has been a classic rivalry for a long time. It could go either way, but Old Forge has been controlling their own destiny for the last couple of years now, and once again, they remain undefeated. And this game really ties close to me because I went to school up there in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, and Old Forge is a small little town, actually, the pizza capital of the world. And it's self-proclaimed, but yes, it's
pizza capital of the
world. Very good pizza up there in Old Forge, and I was talking to a former quarterback and all-star there, actually a living legend there at Old Forge. His name is Jake Minetti. His ex-girlfriend actually dates Saquon Barkley now, so that's a...
Is there a certain pizza place that I wonder if there's a certain pizza place we can highlight, give them more information, they can come down, deliver us a pizza, we can give them a little plug? I mean, I'm always in for some good pizza. I
mean, Old Forge has got great pizza, so that's what I really would need to cover, but once again, I mean, great kids come from Old Forge, hard players.
Well, let's talk about a couple of those kids from Old Forge. Let's talk, there's a couple of guys that we really have to highlight here. One of them, let's start with one, Brendan Mozeleski.
Yeah, he got athlete of the week up there by the Times Tribune. Joby Fawcett is a writer for up there in the Times Tribune. He makes him athlete of the week. The reason being is because he has 209 total yards rushing. I mean, Lackawanna Trail bottled him up in the first half because 163 of those yards came in the second half for Mr. Mozeleski, and he wins athlete of the week there for the Times Tribune.
Should win pizza.
Yeah,
should win pizza.
He really should.
Well, those kind of yards, 3 touchdowns on the night, but that's not all this kid can do.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this offense is really powered through not only, like we mentioned, being a first-half team, but a second-half team scoring racking in 235 yards rushing in the second half. I mean, that's just a true testament to not only closing out games, but proving that you are an undefeated team in Old Forge. And that's just an impressive win for the Devils.
And Mozeleski goes on the other side of the ball, too. He's got 4 key defensive stops. So this kid really is trying to figure out where the best fit for him is. Looking at his stops on defense, looking at his running yards, I would say I could see him more in the future as a running back because he is just so
usually
powerful.
Your best player is your quarterback, and we've seen it at the Iowa State Cyclones versus Oklahoma this weekend. Joel Fanning. He's a quarterback, but he's also their leading tackle, has an interception, and that's at the Division I level. And once again, I'll go back to my friend and former teammate Jake Minetti. He was a quarterback at Old Forge. He wound up going to King's College to play safety, and he wound up being a very good safety, elected captain this year. But you see that in Old Forge, not only producing athletes, but players such as Mozeleski that can play quarterback and have an impact on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that's just too much for Lackawanna Trail to handle. they're worrying about the guy on offense, and then next thing you know, he's coming full force at defense as well, Richie.
Yeah, and Old Forge moves to 7-0 overall in the season. One big key there that we haven't really talked about, wide receiver. And I'm going to try my best to get this name right. Tommy Soriavong. Key explosive plays for Old Forge, who gets 30 points 6 times out of 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you have a very aggressive run attack, especially when your quarterback can really take it upon himself to get rushing yards as well. But you got to have those playmakers on the outside when you're running struggling. So you have those explosive plays. Old Forge is really finding their balance right now, and they look like a great team there in the 1A level for District 2.
Well, and I don't want to forget about Lackawanna Trail. They really do win the first half. If we can look at halves, they win this first half here. They control the clock. They're playing good defense. It just seems to break down on them.
Yeah, I mean, Richie, I'm going to use the old cliche that Deuces Rogers used on me when we lost to Roman Catholic back in the day. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. I hate using that cliche because it really brings back haunted memories, but it's true, Richie. It's really not how you start, it's how you finish, and that's what we see here, Lackawanna Trail. Yeah, good news that they were winning the first half, but as we see, we go back to the numbers here. Old Forge, 231 yards of their total 331 was in the second half, and once again, the athlete of the week for the Tribes Tribune up there in northeastern PA, Brendan Mizalowski, 163 yards were in the second half for him as well.
That's something we're seeing so much more of, all the rushing yardage. It's just piling up on teams, 200, 300, the game I talked about earlier, 400 rushing yards. That could really tire out a defense, can wear a defense down later in games, and which is why we could be seeing like more collapses from teams.
But our defense is having a tough time reading the rush. Are we not teaching enough of the reads?
Well, it's just that all these runs are sideline based. I mean, obviously back in the day in Pee Wee football, you give it to the fastest kid and he runs around the edge. But nowadays, runs are systematically drawn up in order to get the linebackers running side to sideline to sideline. That really tires out the defense. And once again, no matter if you're wing T or spread offense, those runs can be very complicated and a very tiring process to really keep up with. I mean, if you have a speedy running back, a two-headed system like we've seen all year, we have maybe even four-headed systems in a lot of these schemes, because in the wing T, 3 or 4 guys are touching the ball every other play, and in the spread offenses, you get the linebackers running the sideline, it really tires out the defense.
I also think the preparation too. The coach, I mean, nowadays I feel like, with the technology that's out there, you're really able to scheme teams, and prepare like you never have. I mean, I don't think we'd be talking about teams doing these kind of things like zone blocking like 20 years ago. I mean, it's really a different day and age.
No, you're right, because not only is it the systematic schemes are getting changed, you got to worry about the practices. Now it's not you're spending 30 minutes on handing the ball off and killing each other with the concussion protocols nowadays and the shoulder tackling. Everyone's slowing the game down. Yeah. So you got way more time to focus on the mental part of football, and that's really important. And we see it here. Coaches are not focused on the physical part. That's going to come in the game no matter what. So they're really focused on the mental and the preparation.
I want to get to that. You mentioned the coaches. Lackawanna Trail, we're saying they don't have a bad game here. They just really lose it in the end. 2 big touchdowns given up in a 4-minute span. This was Lackawanna Trail coach Steve Jervis on this quote here. He says, "In high school football, what we preach is make the opponent drive the field, because a lot can happen. A penalty, a turnover, anything." But we couldn't do that. And this gets to what you were saying, Mike. Defensively, we gave up too many explosive plays. When you play a good football team, that will come back to bite you. And I think that's exactly what happened here. You just have a defense that just falls apart in the fourth. Well, and it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't only fall apart, but Old Forge just remained undefeated, remained hot, and sometimes the hotter team just wins the ball games, even if the other team was leading in the first half.
Couldn't agree more. Upcoming games for these two: Old Forge goes to 7-0 overall, 6-0 in the conference. They are on the road. They've got an away conference game at Lakeland over in German, PA, Saturday the 14th at 7. Lackawanna Trail, they go to 5-2 overall and 4-2 in the conference. They've got a home conference game versus Susquehanna on Friday the 13th. Forgot it was Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
scary for a lot of teams, but that's Friday the 13th.
It's Halloween too.
Halloween
I don't like that
coming
combination.
Oh, man, the pressure of Halloween. You never know what to go as. Friday the 13th, 7 p.m. I want to go now on to District 3. We're going to talk Middletown Blue Raiders and the Palmyra Cougars, where it's homecoming weekend.
Yeah, I mean, these teams could match each other up in the championship later for District 3 and the 3A class level. I mean, Middletown Blue Raiders versus the Palmyra Cougars. Very interesting matchup and a very defensive battle here. We don't have a high-scoring game, not a lot of rushing yards like we're used to. 17-10, the Middletown Blue Raiders wind up pulling this off. And Palmer didn't give up a point in the second half. It was all the first half that really destroyed them. We're used to seeing the second half really be a blunder for teams, but once again, the first half really wound up sneaking up on Palmer. Didn't really make a comeback there, and they stop them and have 0 points, but I don't get why they just couldn't.
Well, when Middletown goes up 17-0, and I feel like when you go up 17-0, sure, your score is close, but that's right at the half, and you're thinking to yourself, you're figuring, what can we do more than what we've already done? And you've got a capacity crowd there. The eyes are on you. You've got 2 unbeaten teams. That's a lot of pressure on these kids.
That's exactly right, because we said it before that when good teams are in these tight battles, you usually see the better team come out, and this is what happened with Middletown, securing the 6-0 spot and the 3-0 spot in the conference record. And we'll see these teams again later, and that's what I'm excited for. This is why I covered this game, because you look down at this district and there's not really that many teams with impressive records except for these 2 teams, and with that, not too much games left, we'll see these guys again maybe for the District 3 championship in the 3A level.
Sure, and you look at quarterback Scott Ash from Middletown, throws a 35-yard touchdown to wide receiver Chris Plummer. That's the opening drive of the game, and that really starts off. When that starts off your scoring, you get a big touchdown, big yardage right there. Really just so much going on. Great things, but I think third down, we say that the game is, I feel like the game so much is won on third down. If you have the ability to convert, if you can keep those drives alive, if you can keep it going, third down really is your big thing here. Several drives help them to keep third down going.
Well, Richie, usually to set up the third downs, you got to worry about first and second down as well. And you see, you want to win first down in order to make those third downs easier. And I'm sure that's what Middletown went into the game doing, because you win first down, you get 4 to 5 yards on first down, and that helps you for second down. Second down, you don't hurt yourself by going false start or none of that stuff. You're setting yourself up for a 3rd and 3 most of the game, and that's exactly what the coaches dream for, and that's what we see in Middletown do all game.
There's so many different, with 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, your playbook opens up so much. When you're in 3rd and 12, like we talked about earlier, you become too one-dimensional.
Exactly. It's one of the toughest plays in any sports is a 3rd and long.
Yep.
Well, and I do want to touch on Palmyra, because this was one of the most bizarre stats that I saw as I'm looking into this game a little bit. Poor kicking becomes a problem for Palmyra. They hurt themselves. Hunter Dorn, and I'm sorry to put him on blast here, but it's kind of what we do. A 1-yard punt in the second quarter. A 1-yard punt? The drive ends with a field goal, luckily for him, only giving up 3, but I mean, Palmyra also misses a crucial 27-yard field goal. They redeem themselves in the third with a 32-yard field goal, but I hate when I see, and I know Jake Elliott's the Philadelphia Eagles hero right now, but I hate when I see games that come down to these kickers, and I feel bad in these situations, but a 1-yard punt, that's just inexcusable.
Well, not only do you trust them guys you don't expect them to be Superman or the best player on the field. You just want them to do their job. I mean, you just want to change field positions over there to the other team, and with a very close matchup, you need to trust your special teams guys. You're not asking them to do too much, but with that's just disappointing, and they need to figure it out, because when you get in the playoffs, the field position battle really is going to determine your outcome. And
well, I think your punter's the key to that. Because you are going to get into those third downs where the conversion is not going to happen. And when you do get to fourth, if you're not 4th and inches or 4th and so close, you really need to be able to rely on your punter that he can plant it inside of the 20, inside of the 10 maybe even.
Well, any average football fan can look at that 1-yard punt and be like, hey, at that point you might as well go for it. But you're not expecting a terrible effort from one of the guys you trust. At that point in time, and with the playoffs coming up, I think you disregard punting at all, because that is not going to help your momentum or field position, time of possession, any of that. And special teams is really crucial, and not a lot of coaches have time to really work on it due to worrying about so much other things of their offense, their defense, and special teams really needs to improve.
Well, unfortunately, homecoming weekend does get spoiled for Palmyra. Middletown goes to 6-0 overall, 3-0 in the conference. Home conference game for them versus Camp Hill Saturday the 14th at 2 p.m. Palmyra, again with the loss, goes to 5-1 overall, 2-1 in the conference. They didn't have many conference games yet. That's actually surprising. But they do have a road conference game coming up at Steelton High Spire in Steelton, PA. That's again Friday the 13th. That game at 7:30. Moving on, District 6. State College, the Little Lions, a team we talked about last week, actually. The Little Lions, unfortunately for them, take their first loss here.
Yeah, I know we talked about them last week. We don't usually like to talk about teams, back-to-back weeks. But the reason why I wanted to bring them up was because we talked about, like I said, we talked about them last week. They beat Carlisle 70-14, and so it was kind of interesting. Cumberland Valley came into last week's game coming off a 20-14 loss against Central Dauphin. So you have a team that just smoked the team, last week coming in, and then you have a team who's angry. So it was kind of, to me, that was an interesting matchup to watch. And Cumberland Valley comes out on top, 36-21, on top of State College, on top of the Little Lions. Like I said, who won 70-14 last week.
Yeah, and you look at Cumberland Valley, the Eagles have a rushing attack that is just so strong. Yeah. Their rush is really the key to this game, I guess.
It really is. They rushed 56 times for 231 yards. And that's not those aren't eye-popping numbers. That's only 4.1 yards per carry. But that a really chewed up clock in this game. So they opened the game on a 10-play, 63-yard drive.
The numbers don't have to be eye-popping. Nope. If the defense can't figure it out. Right. The numbers don't have to be, because those averages are going to keep going, and if your defense can't stop it, then there's nothing to do. Even if they stop on 4 yards, you only need 10 on those 3 plays. Right. So 4.1 really messes with you.
That's what we were talking about. If you keep setting yourself up for 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you're going to hold the ball all game. That's what you kind of see with the Dallas Cowboys, especially last year with them and their rushing attack. So then what iced the game was Central Valley was up 22-7 in the fourth quarter, and another 5-minute drive to ice the game to make it 29-7. And another interesting quote here from State College, who from their receiver: "We need to wake up. In practice, we need to start practicing harder, then executing faster and make smarter plays. Because right now, my team right now, this feeling, we hate it. We don't want to feel it again."
I love how he calls them my team. That's when you're taking it on your back.
It is, and I think that we see all the time all these undefeated teams that come up short at the end. Maybe a loss wasn't the worst thing in the world for this State College team. I think they were kind of smelling themselves a little bit after that 70-14 win. And maybe something like this, did wake them up, and it's going to be a good thing for them in the end.
Well, you look at the Eagles, and you see they come off of a loss, just like you said.
Yeah.
The Eagles are coming off of a loss, and they had a tough loss, 20-14 versus Central Dauphin in the week prior. We talk a lot about that fire that gets lit under you after a loss. Maybe this really is, like you're saying, what they needed in this case.
That's why I thought this matchup was so intriguing, because like I said, you had a team who was angry, and a team who may have been a little complacent. Now, I don't know if, you usually aren't going to admit it, but it's just human nature, to be a little complacent after winning a game, by 56.
Yeah, well, looking at the Eagles here, Charlie Catcher adds a touchdown here. He's a Penn State commit, so certainly something that they're excited about. Little Lions' key stat, though, 57.6 points average in the first 5 games, drops drastically with this loss. That average, just a math teacher, so that average is absolutely just going to haunt them. Only 3 offensive possessions in the first half. One of those 3 only lasting 50 seconds due to an interception.
And that's where that 4.1 yards per carry. Now, if it was like 6 yards per carry, State College would probably have gotten the ball back another 2 or 3 times, and it would have been a real shootout in the 50s. But they kept churning and moving those chains, and that's what really won Cumberland Valley the game.
Well, and Cumberland Valley takes the lead, 22-7 going into the fourth, and they just don't look back. They each team gets a couple of scores, and they just don't look back on it.
So State College, they moved to 5-1 in District 6, 6A. They're in battle with Erie area at 5-2. But like I said, I think I think this loss is going to do more good than harm.
Couldn't agree more. State College Little Lions, again, you said 5-1. Next, they've got a home conference game against Central Dauphin East. That's out near Harrisburg, PA. That's Friday the 13th at 7. Cumberland Valley Eagles, they go on the road to Carlisle. 7 p.m. matchup on Friday the 13th. We at In the Trenches are going to take a very short break, so stay tuned where we're going to continue to break down some great Pennsylvania high school football action.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green, former pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. When I was in high school, it was very important to me to show scouts what I could do. My friends at Payroll Service Solutions are huge supporters of high school sports and the Sports Fan Base Network. If you're a small to medium-sized business in need of a payroll company, contact Payroll Service Solutions. Not only will they take care of you, they will continue to support the community. For more information, contact Payroll Service Solutions at 215-624-0922 or 866-PAY-EASY.
Welcome back to In the Trenches on the SFBN. We are going to get right back into the high school football action, and we're going to go to District 7 as we got the Penn Hills Indians taking on North Allegheny Tigers. North Allegheny wins this one 27-16 in a game where defense and turnovers really are key, but also they're playing in front of some very watchful eyes. Head coach Mike Tomlin in attendance at this game. Mike, I'll come to you on this one.
Well, this Pittsburgh battle is very meaningful to the fans and everybody out there, especially Mike Tomlin. But once again, we have to mention Pine Richland is the best team in this division. They blew both these teams out by more than 30 points. So shout out Pine Richland being the best team in this District 7 6A conference. But this is the second. These are the two second and third best teams in this, so that's why I wanted to cover it. We got Penn Hills Indians versus the North Allegheny Tigers, and once again, they both go to 5-2, and Penn Hills loses 27-16. Their quarterback comes in here playing really well during the season. Hollis Mathis has been hot, throwing 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. Yeah, he throws 2 interceptions today. Well, that game to the same guy, Joey Porter, for the North Allegheny Tigers. Porter has 2 interceptions, and that's not going to do too much because Mathis comes in playing great. But once again, North Allegheny is a very tough team, and these District 7 6A teams are really looking to go after Pine Richland after struggling and battling each other for this second place matchup.
Well, when you talk about a quarterback that gives, you said 2 picks here. Hollis Mathis gives 2 picks. Alex Hayes gets another one, so there's a 3rd pick here. North Allegheny coach Art Walker, his quote from the game: "You try to keep them from making big plays. You try to capitalize off turnovers and stuff like that. And offensively, we try to run the clock and keep their offense on the sideline. But the defensive coaches just work their tails off to take away their best stuff and stay in coverage and keep pressure on Mathis." There's that name. Trying to keep him in the pocket because he's dangerous when he gets out.
Yeah, well, coach is right because they did a very good job. And once again, this first half, second half battles is one in the first half this time, and 3 turnovers in the first half for the North Allegheny gets to 3. And once again, Penn Hills, you can't really get started with 3 turnovers in the first half and a blocked field goal. No momentum there for Penn Hills, and for a good team to really try to come back after being down 27-0, that really shows their character. But once again, a 27-16 loss, and we got to see both of them teams really compete for Pine Richland because Pine Richland looks really good this year, and they beat their rival Pittsburgh Central Catholic. And I don't know. I mean, these teams battled, but
I think Penn Hills really has a tough time. They just can't find their rhythm in the first quarter. 3 of the first 4 drives go in turnovers, and you're just not going to win that. Mathis goes 12 for 23 on the night. I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback when you have that kind of a line. And quarterback's the most important person on that field. He is your general out there. When you go 12 for 23, you don't have a chance to keep your team in the game. Yeah,
well, it's a shout-out to the North Allegheny preparation. They knew this kid, Hollis Mathis, is a great ball player. I mean, he's been lighting it up recently on the 13 touchdowns to the 2 interceptions. But once again, they game planned for this kid because they knew they didn't want him to hurt them, and you usually do that. You want teams to go to their second to third option when their star player gets shut down, and that's exactly what North Allegheny did. And once again, we got to see who can compete against Pine Ridge, and both of these teams now at 5-2 in their respective parts. But we'll see later in this Pittsburgh District 7 6A division what's going to turn out.
Kick return, Anthony Grimes fumbles in the fourth. Really just hurts Penn Hills here. Tigers can run the clock out at this point. But like you said, the lead here is just crazy. 27-0 going into the third quarter going out of the third quarter. Luke Truman. Now, Luke Truman goes 5 for 14 for 80 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. Rushes for 83 yards for North Allegheny. Yet somehow they come out on top with that. And that's a weird stat for me after what I just said. It's a weird stat to see that for a quarterback.
Yeah, well, North Allegheny didn't do anything extraordinary during the game. It was mostly the preparation in the practice weeks and what they wanted to do against this Penn Hills offense that was really been killing it through the first half of the season. But 27-0, and it's all due to turnovers.
Well, Luke Truman spoke after the game about how it was a big game. He said it felt as if it was a playoff atmosphere. He said it was a playoff game. A lot of playoff implications, so we just treated it as a big game. 4 wins in a row after 2 losses to start it off. Upcoming for them, North Allegheny moves to 5-2 overall, 3-1 in the Northern 7 Conference. They travel to Seneca Valley Friday night for their game. Penn Hills goes to 5-2 overall, 3-2 in their conference as they travel to Hempfield next. Staying with District 7, staying here with you, Mike, we look at a Class 5A game. Upper St. Clair Panthers defeat the West Allegheny Indians in a very close one, an overtime game. Might be one of the craziest games, actually a quote from the Upper St. Clair coach, one of the craziest games I've ever seen, and I have to agree with him on this one.
Yeah, first overtime game that I've covered, and this is week 6 of episode In the Trenches. You got to love these overtime matchups, and shout out to both these head coaches, Jim Render for the Upper St. Clair Panthers and Bob Palco for the West Allegheny Indians. Both these coaches combined for 13 district championships, which is the most ever in this District 7 5A. Both legendary coaches. We see a huge matchup, and Palco goes for the 2-point conversion for the win, and it gets picked off in the end zone by Time Kyle. You don't really – usually you'd be more conservative and go for the field goal kick, especially it's still on the 2-yard line in high school. But, they go for 2, and Palco, once again, legendary coach, trust in the system, trust in the scheme. They just come up short and lose 21-20 in a tough overtime matchup. And once again – West Allegheny had the lead with 1:30 left, looking to drain the clock down. They go into the Wildcat formation, and the snap, high school mistakes, that's what you see. You see the snaps, you see tragic penalties, but the snap goes over the guy's head, and West Allegheny couldn't recover it. Upper St. Clair recovers it in their territory and ties the ball game.
Well, and I love how high school overtime works. High school overtime, just to remind those viewers at home, the way that high school overtime rules work, each team gets similar to college in this regard. Each team gets a possession at the 10. So if there's still time, process repeated, but each team gets a possession at the 10 so that they can go in and score. If you do not score, it goes to the other team. You go to the other end of the field, and they get it from the 10. This repeats until a winner emerges. Similar to what we see in college, I think college starts as the 30 or 35 at this point, and you have a chance to go in from that. I believe that's how 30, it is. 30, is it 30? Really similar to a college game, but the 10-yard line, you feel as if you're so close, but when you only get those few snaps, you really don't have a lot to work with.
Well, the thing is, with it being such a high percentage chance of scoring within the 10-yard line, why kick that field goal? Your team has a better shot of kicking that extra point, settling down your defense. If you let up another touchdown, you have a way better chance of scoring again. I guess Palco just wanted to end the game early. Maybe he was thinking more in depth of these high school overtime rules, like, all right, it's just going to keep going to 7 overtimes, like that Buffalo-Memphis game we seen over the weekend, wind up being 69 points from each team. But that's what Palco was probably thinking. He was thinking, you know what, I just want to end the game here, and they came up short.
Well, let's look at this. So West Allegheny, they win the toss here. They go on defense first. Upper St. Clair scores, gets the extra point. They go up by 7. West Allegheny, Mateo Vendamia scores on a 1-yard touchdown run, and Coach Palco decides to go for 2 and the win. Now, he actually does this. I know, Mike, you're shaking your head here, but what I'm saying, though, he does this earlier in the season. He does this against North Hills, and also he does this before in a title game against McKeesport.
Well,
so he has the history.
Well, you stick with your gut. I mean, great coaches do that. They make those game-time decisions, as we've seen with Terry Francona in the Indian series. He decides to save Kluber for the second game. But, I mean, what are you thinking? You trusted your defense in the beginning of the decision was that, all right, we're going to put our defense out there on the field. 10 minutes later, what does that change? Coach Pialco, I'm not sure what your decision was, but stick with your gut. He was successful before, and
you can't argue against a successful coach. I mean, Coach Palco is a legend out there. You can't argue with his history. You can't argue with his stats. Sure, you can argue with this one call and this one play. But then again, that play works, and that's not Coach Palco. But if that play works, we're not talking about Coach Palco saying, what were you thinking? We're talking about him saying, my goodness, what a genius. Who else? We're calling him a visionary as opposed to questioning his ethics here. And that's what legendary coaches are made of. Legendary coaches are made because they go for two at that point. This case just doesn't seem to pan out for him.
Yeah, and Coach Jim Render on the other side for Upper St. Clair, he
looks brilliant.
Yeah, he looks absolutely amazing right now, sitting with his undefeated record. And now West Allegheny loses a tough one in overtime, 5-1, 4-1 in the conference, and Upper St. Clair now holds the District 7 5A here. This is a different story than what we have up in 6A because Pine Richmond owns that, but District 7 5A, Upper St. Clair, first place after stopping that 2-point conversion late in overtime. Exciting game.
Yeah, Upper St. Clair 6-1, West Allegheny 5-1, as you mentioned. Upcoming for these two teams, West Allegheny, an away conference game at Hampton in Allison Park, PA. That's Friday at 7. Upper St. Clair, an away conference game at McKeesport on Friday, also at 7. Corey, you're a part of this show too. I'm going to come back to you. You awake?
Thanks, guys.
I'm sorry. I've been with Mike for a little bit. I want to come back to Corey on this one. Corey, I'm going to come to you as you look at District 9. Clarion Limestone versus Karn City. Two teams we haven't really talked about before, but they play in a game too close that we have to talk about. They're forcing us to talk about it. But Karn City Gremlins beating Clarion Limestone Lions 35-34.
Yeah, it was a heck of a game, Richie. Karn City went up in the first half 28-6. They had a 28-12 lead at halftime. They blew that lead. They were down 34-28 in the fourth quarter. So that's not how you start, how you finish. But they did recover on a 12-play, 67-yard drive with under 4 minutes left. Riley Hummel punched it in for a yard to put them up and win the game 35-34. I thought talk about some interesting stats here. We have Karn City, they outgained Clarion Limestone 372-23 on the ground. Clarion Limestone outgained Karn City 494-80 in the air. That's really weird. I mean, you don't see those kind of stats.
The tale of two teams.
Yeah, that really, like we said, one-dimensional. You have Brendan McCrae for Clarion Limestone. He went 19 for 29, almost 500 yards. He threw for 494, 3 touchdowns and an interception. So he was really airing it out. But again, we see all, like we've been saying this past week, it's the running game. It's really coming out victorious.
Right. I mean, these offenses are trying to catch up with the tide, and you see either teams throwing the ball at max effort or teams sticking to what they know and they're running the ball, and that's just amazing having lopsided stats on each side of the ball for opposing teams.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, that is really, really lopsided.
Yeah, and the Gremlins are up by 16 at the half. Trouble scoring on the final drive there, personal foul penalty, calls back a touchdown, and that really is the killer, not because of the points coming back, not because of the penalty itself. It's just one of those things we see. It's just demoralizing. When you see your team and you see your success, and then the referees call it back, and you have nobody to blame but yourself. You can't blame the officials at that point. You have nobody to blame but yourself.
They beg to differ.
Yeah, I bet they do. But Clarion Limestone, 3 straight scores. Get a 1-yard touchdown run. Riley Hummel puts them up by 6 with under 4 left to play.
Yep, and one thing to mention too, Karn City converted a 4th and inches on the game-winning drive. So again, that's pretty demoralizing for Clarion Limestone, who was 1 play away from getting off the field and getting a W.
It's just too much for them to handle, I suppose. Upcoming games, Clarion Limestone Lions have an away non-conference game at Monito, West Sunbury, PA, Friday the 13th at 7. Carson City Gremlins have an away conference game at Clarion area in Clarion, PA. That's Friday the 13th, also at 7. District 11, it's a battle of the unbeaten teams. Power running is the key in this game. Parkland Trojans beat Bethlehem Catholic Hawks 38-24.
Yeah, Parkland is looking like the team to beat in District 11, 6A. I mean, they're looking pretty strong. However, it was their defense that has been pretty suffocating throughout the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year. They did give up 24 points, but like we've been talking about the whole show, the running game, 300 rushing yards from Parkland. They were up 24-10 midway through the third quarter, and Jahan Worth pretty much iced the game with a 56-yard run. He finished the day with 243 yards, 3 touchdowns on 15 carries, so they really fed Worth. And Parkland, like I said, they look like the favorites. They moved to 7-0 and beat another previously undefeated team in Bethlehem Catholic, who isn't, they have nothing to be ashamed of, but that just shows you how good Parkland is.
Well, Parkland, and Parkland is not defeating easy teams here. This is a tough stretch for them. Going up 7-0 overall in the season was no fluke. It was nothing that was handed to them. They have difficult teams that they're playing, but they stay perfect here. 6-0 in the EPC South. Coming up, Parkland plays an away non-conference game at Pocono Mountain East in Swiftwater, PA, Friday at 7. Bethlehem Catholic falls now to 6-1. Still good season for them. 6-1 overall, 5-1 in the conference. They're now going to host Whitehall in a home conference game this Friday at 7. Stay tuned. We're going to talk District 12, and we're going to be going to Mike as we talk Archbishop Wood and Father Judge. Stay tuned in the trenches on the SFBN.
Hi, I'm Marty Bystrom, former pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. In my experience in Major League Baseball, I know how important it is for high school athletes to gain exposure. My friends at Payroll Service Solutions are huge supporters of high school sports and the Sports Fan Base Network. If you are a small to medium-sized business in need of a payroll company, contact Payroll Service Solutions. Not only will they take care of you, they will continue to support the community. For more information, contact Payroll Service Solutions at 215-624-0922 or 866-PAY-EASY.
Hey, you.
Who, me?
Yes, you. You like pro sports?
Yeah,
You like college sports?
of course.
You like high school sports?
I guess.
Maybe you just don't know much about them.
Hey, voice in the sky.
Huh?
Where can I go to learn more about Philadelphia area high school athletics?
Just watch Varsity Voice every Wednesday on Facebook Live at 7 p.m.
Welcome back to In the Trenches on the SFB, and thank you so much for staying with us through this episode. We're going to go to District 12. It's our final game that we're going to recap of the night. Archbishop Wood punishes Father Judge in their previous meeting 28-7. This game, Wood crushes Judge even more, 49-19. And Mike, I'm coming to you for this one. Not a big shocking win here.
Well, I didn't know what to expect at this game because I really love Judge's quarterback, Shane Dooley, but once again, Archbishop Wood proves why they're one of the best teams in Pennsylvania, destroying Father Judge 49-19. But once again, we see that Archbishop Wood is merely unstoppable except for their counterpart, St. Joe's Prep, which beat them earlier in the season. That's the only hiccup we've seen from Archbishop Wood, and Father Judge plays St. Joe's Prep this weekend, so maybe they can take some film and tape from this Wood game and transfer it over to the Prep game, because Archbishop Wood looks phenomenal, putting up 49 points, and it's not only their varsity team that is the team that really drives this Archbishop Wood program from what they want it to be and have been established since the early 2010 era. Their JV team, I was there at the JV game, is just as fundamentally sound as their varsity, and they have punters, long snappers playing for the JV games that are varsity experienced guys, and that's what Archbishop Wood's about. Once again, winning a huge game against Father Judge, and Father Judge having a struggling year this year. And
well, that's what I was going to ask you about Father Judge. You know, we've talked about them in weeks past. We had an issue with the banner. We had an issue with the banner here. Mike got some angry fan mail on that one, but it's definitely one of those situations where I do look at Father Judge and I question, Are they? Is this a season that's gone for them? Is this a season that they can just kind of take these next couple of games, like we talked about early in the show? Can they take these next couple of games and really just say, we need our juniors to pull through at this point?
Well, luckily, Father Judge has a good recruiting team, and a lot of their 7th and 8th grade teams, such as St. Matt's, St. Jerome's, the guys they really feed into their programs, they're looking really good. So Judge has a lot to look forward to in later years. I think they're in a rebuilding process now, but Shane Dooley going in there as a senior next year, I mean, who knows what can happen at him at the helm with a very good experience. This is his first year starting, so a good experience year for him. Senior year, he might take off with it if Father Judge can find some athletes, transfers, or whatever they can do to put together a solid team for next year. But right now, Father Judge is done, and Archbishop Wood, once again, could be 5A champs.
I think it's, too, worth noting that, Mike, you talked about Wood's JV team, how good that is. I think that's so important to have like a system like that to where the JV guys can look up to the varsity guys and come in and play with them. I mean, that's so important, and that's something, you know, maybe Father Judge should invest more in their JV, you know. Perhaps they'd be getting better results if they do that from here on out.
I think at that point, if you're going to start looking down at JV, you really need to turn to the school's recruiting. At that point, it's not just the coaches recruiting; it's your school recruiting quality students, quality athletes. At that point, and for these schools, these Catholic schools, private schools, what have you, the recruiting part is a difficult piece. Especially in this area. We look at the Philadelphia area, and you look at private schools, you look at Catholic schools in a whole, and we hope to, for these guys, we hope to see their enrollment improving. But public school still does have that strength there to them. Upcoming games for these guys: Archbishop Wood, Coach Steve Devlin. They go to 5-2, 3-1 in their conference. Archbishop Wood Vikings. They have an away conference game at Archbishop Carroll this Friday at 7. Father Judge, Coach Mike McKay. They go to 2-6 overall, 0-3 in the conference. Like we said before, really tough season for these guys. Crusaders home conference game versus St. Joe's Prep. That's Saturday at 7. Our final game to discuss tonight, staying in District 12. We got a great clip coming up of this for you. John Bartram Braves deliver Overbrook a very harsh 56-14 defeat.
Yeah, I mean, this is John Bartram's most impressive season thus far for their program. They're 7-0 right now, sitting high in this public league, Philadelphia Public League division. They beat a team in Overbrook who cannot consecutively put together winning seasons, and Bartram's offense just looks phenomenal this year, and a 56-12 win, putting up so many points. And once again, they control their own destiny here in the driver's seat to go undefeated and win a public league a championship. So Bartram, huge win over Overbrook and putting together a very fine season.
And I don't think that this was a shocking win for them. John Bartram, they're now 7-0. I just don't know this was a real shocking win. You're playing a Panthers team that's 1-5, 4 losses in a row now. This wasn't a surprising win. This is really like an off week for them, but certainly helps to add to their record, adds to their dominance.
Did what they had to do.
Exactly.
That's all you're looking for, doing your job.
Well, it goes to that, to doing your job. It's what we say. When we question how good is a team, you know what? You can only play the teams that are on your schedule. So if we look at a team and say, 7-0, they're 7-0 against the teams that they saw at the beginning of the season are on their schedule. You prepare for the games that are ahead of you. The Eagles aren't going to prepare for a team that they're not playing coming up. Why should any of these schools? We have to compare them on that level. We have to compare them to their schedule.
Their most unprepared game was the first game against the season against Archbishop Ryan, really opening up against an opponent they never seen before, cross-rival, non-public league matchup, and Archbishop Ryan loses 22-21. Bartram does not look back after that first close game. They blow their teams out by a very high margin in the public league conference game. So the public league isn't looking as strong as we used to see, as Bartram is running the table through the public league right now and looking to remain undefeated. Got a huge matchup in 2 weeks against Mastery North, who looks pretty good themselves. So we'll see Bartram if they can remain undefeated.
Yeah, well, let's look at Bartram. Home against Prep Charter Thursday at 6 p.m. Overbrook has an away conference game at South Philadelphia Friday at 6. So that's going to wrap up another edition of In the Trenches, but a few announcements and reminders before we go, so don't tune out just yet. 2 weeks from now, our game of the week is going to be Friday, October the 20th, 8 p.m. It's got LaSalle College High School taking on St. Joe's Prep at Widener. So big game for these two guys playing at Widener. You can catch that great game through our website, www.thesfbn.com. It's going to be on the PCL portal there. We hope you can tune in and enjoy that game. I know we're going to be tuning in. I'm sure we're going to talk about that game the Monday following. You know, the SFBN, we so appreciate that you watch In the Trenches, but our station here is filled with such great content. You can watch Varsity Voice on Wednesdays with Ari Bluestein and In the Goal. I love saying that. That's hosted by Steven Schreiber. You've got Jack Cap on that. Ryan Haney. Cap was here last week with us. He was such a cool guy to get to hang out with.
Behind the camera.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Absolutely it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel. You can get there on iTunes. Search for the Sports Fan Base Network on iTunes. So if you don't have the time to watch us live, you want to listen to us in the car, on the go, during your workout, you can get the audio version of our show on the Sports Fan Base Network on iTunes. So you can subscribe to the podcast channel. Also, this is something new for you guys. Sign up for the Sports Fan Base Network newsletter at www.thesfbn.com. You can get your weekly email fix of high school sports action. And I know this upcoming newsletter got some great stuff about In the Trenches. Some great stuff coming up. A reminder from earlier in the show, each week we're going to be spotlighting a great organization that is helping to fight breast cancer in so many different number of ways. This week, that breast cancer charity is Pink. So please be sure to check them out, www.pinkpartnersyork.org. Again, be sure to like, share, post about this episode of In the Trenches on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of your continued support. And we'll be back here every Monday live on Facebook, and then you can catch the videos on YouTube as they get posted throughout the week. You can check out all of the great high school football action with us each Monday on In the Trenches. For Corey Sharp, for Mike Palmer, I'm Richie Blywis, reminding you to stay classy and be good to each other.